3, 2, 1. Doug Kide here with this week's Patriots video mailbag. Tweet me your questions at Doug Kide using the hashtag MailDoug. First up, Sports Meme Guy asks, who do you expect to have a bigger role, Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith? I thought this was an interesting question because it's one that I really hadn't considered. I just kind of figured Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith would play the exact same number of snaps, but clearly one player will be on the field more, if only slightly, than the other. I would say it would probably be Jonnu Smith, and that's because he is the better blocker than Hunter Henry. He's also more versatile. He can actually carry the ball out of the backfield, and he's more athletic. Hunter Henry has a major advantage on his own of being the better pass catcher, and obviously that's a very big part of any offense and of that tight end position. But if one player is going to be on the field a little bit more, I would say it will probably be Smith. He's more of that inline option. That's more of what he did with the Tennessee Titans. Hunter Henry probably will be flexed out a little bit more in the slot, out wide, more used as a pass catcher. So I think they will play a very similar number of snaps, probably 80-90% of offensive snaps. But if I had to guess, I would say that Smith will wind up playing a little bit more than Hunter Henry. Second question here, sticking with tight ends, Andrew asks, do you see the Patriots keeping both of their second-year tight ends? He's referring to Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene. Any chance they go without fullbacks and use Dalton Keene in that role instead? I do think that's a possibility. I thought it was interesting that the Patriots cut a fullback on Thursday, Dan Vitale, and signed a tight end, Troy Fumagalli. And that could spell the end possibly for Jakob Johnson on the 53-man roster, and I'll explain why right now. When the Patriots have used two tight end sets in the past, they really have not relied very heavily upon a fullback. When they had Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez from 2010 to 2012, they didn't really have a full-time fullback on their roster. James Devlin was on the practice squad. I think he played one game in 2012, but he really took over as more of a starter with a full-time role on the roster in 2013 when the Patriots were back to using one tight end. So I could certainly see that happening here as well. I think that Jakob Johnson would probably be a pretty easy guy to slip onto the practice squad. And then in those short yardage situations when the Patriots need a lead blocker, then it could be someone like Dalton Keene. It could be someone like Jonnu Smith. It could be an offensive lineman or a linebacker. The Patriots have been creative about the way that they have used fullbacks in the past. So I could certainly see that happening here as well. I'm not sure if they want three tight ends and a fullback when they could keep four tight ends and use one of those tight ends as a fullback, and the obvious choice would be Dalton Keene because he did a little bit of that H-back fullback stuff in college at Virginia Tech. Final question here, Ashley asks, hi Doug, if we end up trading for Julio Jones, does that spell the end for N'Keal Harry here? Not definitely, but it certainly makes his path to a roster spot that much more difficult. If you're talking about a wide receiver core that's got Julio Jones, Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Gunnar Olszewski as the punt returner, then N'Keal Harry would have to make the team as a sixth wide receiver. And the Patriots don't always keep around a sixth wide receiver. So yeah, I could certainly see N'Keal Harry getting traded, getting cut, him being left off the roster if Julio Jones does come aboard. You could even see N'Keal Harry being part of a trade for Julio Jones. That would make a lot of sense from both ends. But yeah, I'm not sure if N'Keal Harry would be left off the roster if they trade for Julio Jones. There's definitely still the possibility that they would keep him around, that they still see upside in him as a first-round pick. But it definitely becomes more difficult for him to make the roster.
PNC Bank, helping to make banking easier.